The Taiwan Strait is 110 miles wide at its narrowest navigable point, which sounds like plenty of room, until you consider that it is also one of the most politically pressurized bodies of water on the planet, that both sides of it are monitored continuously by sensor systems whose operators do not take breaks, and that the People's Liberation Army Navy has recently developed a strong institutional preference for expressing its views on freedom of navigation by parking a warship in the path of the vessel exercising it. This preference is not new. It is not subtle. It is, in the specific way that Chinese maritime strategy works, entirely deliberate, a behavior chosen because it sits in the gray area between a navigational incident and a diplomatic one where the costs of escalation fall unevenly and the photographs are excellent. The photographs are, from Beijing's perspective, the point. A photograph of a Chinese warship interposing itself between a U.S. Navy destroyer and its intended course communicates something that a press statement cannot. It communicates physical presence in waters Beijing claims. It communicates willingness to impose costs. It communicates to a domestic audience that has been told for decades that Chinese naval power is the appropriate answer to American overreach in the Western Pacific, that the fleet is doing its job. The photograph does not need to be accompanied by an engagement. The photograph needs to be clear, well-framed, and disseminated before the American ship finishes its transit. The planned destroyer that is going to produce this photograph this morning is a Type 052D. She's a modern, capable surface combatant. Her HQ-9B vertical launch air defense missiles have genuine range and genuine capability. Her YJ-18 anti-ship missiles are a credible threat to surface combatants at extended range. Her Type 346A phased array radar is not the Spy-1D, but it is not a museum piece either. The Type 052D is a real warship, and the humor in what it is about to do does not come from any deficiency in its hardware. The humor comes from the decision to use a modern, capable 7,000-ton guided missile destroyer as a prop in a photograph. At 7:23, the Type 052D is holding position 14 nautical miles northeast of Matsu Island, on a course that puts her directly across the standard transit lane used by U.S. Navy vessels conducting freedom of navigation operations through the strait. She has been in this position since 6:41, which means she has been waiting for 42 minutes. She has been waiting because the intelligence picture available to the Plan Command Authority responsible for this operation identified USS Rafael Peralta, DDG-115, an Arleigh Burke Flight 2A destroyer, commissioned in 2017, as the vessel conducting today's transit, established her approximate entry time and course through the strait, and pre-positioned the Type 052D to intercept. The timing required a 42-minute wait in position. The crew has been drinking tea and watching the radar picture. The commanding officer of the Type 052D has reviewed his orders. The orders are specific. Intercept the American vessel. Establish physical presence across her course. Maintain position until the American ship alters course or reduces speed. Document the encounter with the ship's camera systems and with the UAV. The plan is flying at medium altitude above the intercept point and return to Zhoushan upon completion. This is, from a purely operational standpoint, a well-planned harassment operation. The intelligence work was real. The positioning was precise. The documentation plan is thorough. The UAV overhead means there will be multiple camera angles. Beijing's Information Operations Division is already preparing the edit. There is, however, one element of the plan that was built on an assumption that is about to be tested. The assumption is that USS Rafael Peralta, faced with a 7,000-ton warship across her course, will reduce speed or alter course, producing the visual of an American destroyer yielding to Chinese presence that the photograph is designed to capture. COLREGS, the international regulations for preventing collisions at sea, apply to all vessels including warships, and under specific geometric configurations, they create a duty to maneuver. The Type 052D's position is calculated to create exactly this configuration for the first 11 minutes of the intercept geometry. This is the vulnerability window. not a kinetic threat. A navigational and diplomatic constraint built by someone who understood the rules and designed the geometry to exploit them. For 11 minutes, the correct seaman-like response and the tactically preferred response are pulling in different directions, and the difference between them is being photographed from a UAV. Aboard USS Rafael Peralta, the Morning Watch has been tracking the Type 052D since she took up her position at 6:41. The surface search radar identified the contact the moment she slowed to holding speed. The tactical action officer logged the position and assessed the intercept geometry before 6:45. The commanding officer has been briefed. He has reviewed the COLREGS assessment prepared by the ship's navigator. He has reviewed the diplomatic guidance from 7th Fleet that covers exactly this scenario. He has had his morning coffee, which is relevant because the quality of decision-making in the next 40 minutes is going to reflect the kind of settled, professional calm that adequate coffee supports. And the coffee this morning is from a fresh pot. He has been in the Strait before. He has seen the Type 052D tactic before, not personally with this vessel, but in the operational record and the exercise scenarios and the discussions at every professional military education course he attended on the way to this command. He knows what the play is. He is deciding how to run the counter. The commanding officer's decision is made by 7:19, 4 minutes before the Type 052D's position brings her into the formal intercept geometry. He calls the bridge. He tells the officer of the deck the plan. The plan is not dramatic. It is not aggressive. It is, by the standards of tactical decision-making, almost boring, which is precisely its merit. USS Rafael Peralta will maintain her planned course and speed. She will comply with COLREGS obligations as they arise and resolve. She will not alter course to avoid the Type 052D unless COLREGS require it, and the navigator's assessment is that the geometry, while constrained, does not require an alteration that would produce the photograph the Type 052D is positioned to generate. The plan requires maintaining 16 knots on a course that will bring USS Rafael Peralta to 600 yards of the Type 052D's position before the geometry resolves. 600 yards is close. It is not dangerously close for two professional naval crews in good visibility. It is close enough that the Type 052D's commanding officer is going to have a decision of his own to make about whether to hold position and accept the 600-yard passing distance or maneuver. The American commanding officer believes the Chinese commanding officer will maneuver. Let us now talk about the Type 052D because the ship positioned across USS Rafael Peralta's course this morning deserves to be described accurately, which is to say, neither dismissively nor as something it is not. The Type 052D Luoyang III class destroyer entered service with the plan in 2014. It displaces approximately 7,000 tons. Its HHQ-9B vertical launch missiles are a genuine long-range air defense capability. Its YJ-18 anti-ship missiles use a subsonic cruise phase followed by a supersonic terminal sprint designed to complicate intercept geometry. Its Type 346A, active phased array radar, is a capable multi-function system. The Type 052D is comparable in displacement to an older Arleigh Burke Flight 1. It is not a joke, and this story will not treat it as one. The joke, to the extent there is one, is that a ship of this genuine capability has been sent to take a photograph. The plan's tactical manual for what Beijing describes as rights protection operations, a term that covers the full range of behavior from diplomatic protest to physical interposition, calls for the intercepting vessel to establish a position that is visible, documented, and legally ambiguous. Not illegal, because illegal creates diplomatic costs. Ambiguous because ambiguous creates an environment in which both sides can describe what happened in ways consistent with their strategic preferences. The Type 052D this morning is operating precisely within this doctrine. The commanding officer is not being reckless. He is being precise. The gap between what he was ordered to do and what USS Rafael Peralta is about to do is not a gap in professionalism. It is a gap in strategic intent. Below decks on USS Rafael Peralta, the electronic warfare officer is running the SLQ-32 collection that has been active since 0641. The Type 052D's Type 346A radar has been emitting since the contact was first acquired, and the SLQ-32 has been logging every sweep. The Type 346A's emission profile is in the threat library. What is not fully characterized in the existing threat library entry, built primarily from standoff collection and analysis of observed plan exercises, is the radar's emission behavior. During the specific operational mode the Type 052D is running right now. Close-range surface surveillance with concurrent anti-air warfare tracking. The system behaves differently in this mode than in the long-range search profiles that constitute most of the existing collection. The frequency agility pattern is different. The pulse-width compression ratio is different. The mode transitions as the radar moves between its surface and air surveillance functions are different, and each transition produces a characteristic signal that, once logged, allows future systems to identify when a Type 346A has switched modes. This is useful. This is the kind of information that future electronic warfare planning requires. The electronic warfare officer is getting it for free at close range because the Type 052D is holding position 600 yards away and running its radar continuously. The 346A is doing something interesting, the electronic warfare officer notes, at approximately 7:29, speaking to no one in particular, in the way that people working alone at a task sometimes do. It's cycling between modes every 40 seconds. That's faster than our standing assessment. He marks the timestamp. Every time it cycles, there is a 2-second gap in the air surveillance coverage. He marks the gap. That is going to be useful. He adds the observation to the collection log. It goes into the draft report that he will complete before USS Rafael Peralta clears the northern end of the strait. The communications intelligence picture is equally productive. The Type 052D is communicating with the UAV overhead, with a command authority ashore that the intercept geometry suggests is either the East Sea Fleet headquarters at Zhoushan or a subordinate operations center, and with at least one other planned vessel that the SLQ-32 has not yet correlated to a track on the surface radar picture. The communications are encrypted on a planned tactical communication system that presents the same non-trivial collection challenge that Russian military communications present. The content is not readable in real time. What is readable is the network architecture, the frequency usage, the burst timing, and the signal characteristics that collectively build a more detailed picture of how the plan coordinates its rights protection operations than the existing picture contains. The UAV's data link is on a frequency that the SLQ-32 identified within 4 minutes of the intercept beginning. The data link is not encrypted to the standard that a military communications officer with appropriate resources would prefer. It is a commercial adjacent protocol that was probably selected for reliability in the maritime environment rather than for communication security. The SLQ-32 is logging it. The logs are going in the report. The drone is talking to a ground station, the electronic warfare officer says at 7:34. The ground station is not on this ship. He cross-references the bearing. Coastal bearing. Fuzhou-direction. He makes a note. The note will eventually become a paragraph in the 27-page collection report. The paragraph will interest the people who maintain the picture on Plan Rights Protection Operation Command and Control Architecture considerably, because the existing picture has a gap at exactly this level. The relationship between the intercepting vessel and the shore-based command authority during the active operation. Today's collection is filling that gap in real time. At 7:33, USS Rafael Peralta is at 1,100 yards from the Type 052D's position and maintaining 16 knots. The Type 052D is stationary, holding course, committed to her position. The geometry is closing at the rate 16 knots produces, which is to say, it is closing deliberately and visibly, and in a way that both commanding officers can calculate to the second. At 7:34:20, the Type 052D's bridge team makes a decision. She begins to move. Not a dramatic emergency maneuver, a controlled increase in speed, on a course that takes her to a parallel heading, approximately 400 yards to the northeast of USS Rafael Peralta's course line. The maneuver is smooth, professional, and entirely consistent with the behavior of a crew that was waiting to see whether the American ship would flinch. The American ship did not flinch. The Type 052D is now repositioning to the parallel escort position. That is the secondary option in the planned tactical manual for rights protection operations when the primary interposition does not produce the desired course alteration. The secondary option produces a different kind of photograph. Not the Chinese ship blocking the American ship, but the Chinese ship accompanying the American ship close aboard through waters Beijing claims. Still useful. Not the same. The commanding officer of USS Rafael Peralta watches the Type 052D come to her new position off the port beam. He notes the maneuver. He notes that the position is consistent with what 7th Fleet's operational guidance describes as a standard plan harassment escort posture. He tells the officer of the deck to maintain 16 knots and resume the planned transit course, now that the intercept geometry has resolved. He picks up his coffee. It is still warm. This is, by the standards of coffee management at sea, an excellent outcome. The Type 052D maintains her escort position for the next 47 minutes as USS Rafael Peralta proceeds through the strait. The two ships are at approximately 400 yards separation. Close enough that the crews can observe each other's deck activities clearly. Close enough that the Type 052D's camera systems are getting the footage that the documentation plan requires. And close enough that the SLQ-32 is collecting the Type 346A's emission behavior at a range that standoff collection cannot replicate. Every minute of the escort is a minute of collection. The electronic warfare officer is not thinking about the escort as harassment. He is thinking about it as an extended collection opportunity that the plan has arranged and is paying for with its own fuel and crew time. He has 47 minutes. He uses them. On the weather deck of USS Rafael Peralta, a petty officer from the intelligence division is running a camera on a tripod, methodically documenting the Type 052D's external configuration from bow to stern. Antenna placement, mast equipment, VLS cell configuration, the arrangement of deck fittings and equipment that, to a trained analyst, communicates information about the ship's actual fit compared to the official configuration that China publishes. This documentation happens every time a planned vessel comes close. The petty officer has done it before. It is thorough, methodical, and produces the kind of photographic record that intelligence analysts use to track modifications across the planned surface fleet over time. The Type 052D's crew can see the petty officer with the camera. They have cameras too. Both crews are documenting each other. This is, in a specific way, the most honest exchange of the morning. At 8:21, the Type 052D begins to fall back. USS Rafael Peralta is approaching the northern end of the strait transit lane, and the intercept geometry that brought the planned destroyer to this position does not extend into the more open waters beyond. The Type 052D reduces speed. Her range opens from 400 yards to 800, then to 1,200, then to something that the surface radar records as a departing contact on a southwest course back toward the strait. The escort is over. The transit continues. The post-intercept work begins at 0823, while the Type 052D is still visible on the surface radar. The electronic warfare officer is completing the collection log. The intelligence petty officer is reviewing the photographic documentation. The navigator is annotating the track record with the timestamps of each maneuver. The tactical action officer is composing the situation report to 7th Fleet that will summarize the encounter for the operational record and the intelligence community. The situation report is factual and precise and contains no language about the encounter that departs from the professional register of U.S. Navy situation reports. It describes the Type 052D's initial position, the intercept geometry, the maneuver at 734, the escort duration, and the departure. It describes the collection results in summary terms that the electronic warfare officer will expand in the full product. It does not describe the quality of the commanding officer's coffee, which was warm, which was good. The collection report runs to 27 pages. It covers the Type 346A emission behavior in close-range surveillance mode, the 40-second mode cycle with its 2-second air surveillance gap, the UAV data link bearing and characteristics, the communications architecture connecting the Type 052D to the Fuzhou-direction shore command, and the photographic documentation of the ship's external configuration. The 27th page is an appendix on the photographic analysis, not a full assessment, which requires analytical resources not aboard the ship, but a summary of the observable configuration details that depart from the published specification. There are 7 of them. The appendix is flagged for priority review by the Planned Surface Fleet Modification Tracking Program. The report is formatted and transmitted at 9:14, while USS Rafael Peralta is clearing the northern end of the strait and the navigator is marking the transit complete. The report goes to 7th Fleet, to Pacific Command, to the Office of Naval Intelligence, and, via liaison channels, to the intelligence services of Japan and the Republic of Korea, both of whom operate regularly in waters where the Type 052D and its emissions are a standing collection priority. The 47 minutes of close-range Type 346A data that the escort provided is described in the transmittal note as the highest quality direct measurement of that radar in its close-range operational mode, yet collected by a U.S. Navy platform. The electronic warfare officer wrote that characterization himself. He is not given to overstatement. The transmittal note is accurate. Now let us talk about what Beijing said happened. The Chinese Ministry of National Defense releases a statement at 1500 Beijing time, approximately 7 hours after the encounter. The statement describes a U.S. Navy warship conducting what it terms a provocative intrusion into Chinese territorial waters in the Taiwan Strait, and describes PLAN naval forces as having conducted lawful rights protection activities to monitor, shadow, and warn the American vessel. The statement uses the phrase "drove away" in the Chinese language original, which the ministry's own English translation renders as expelled, a word that implies a degree of American departure under Chinese pressure that the track record of the transit does not support, but which reads well in the domestic context for which the statement is primarily intended. The footage that accompanies the media coverage, released through a Defense Ministry social media channel at approximately 15:30, shows the Type 052D in close proximity to what is clearly an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. The framing of the footage puts the PLAN warship in the foreground and the American vessel in the background, which communicates presence and proximity without communicating the direction of relative motion at the moment the footage was taken. The footage is real. The framing is deliberate. Both things are true simultaneously, which is the specific property of well-produced strategic communication footage that makes it effective with the audience it is designed to reach. The second statement from a ministry spokesperson at the afternoon press briefing describes the operation as a demonstration of China's determination to safeguard its sovereignty in the Taiwan Strait, and warns that the United States should cease its provocative freedom of navigation operations in Chinese territorial waters. The spokesperson is composed, specific, and does not describe the moment at 7:34:20 when the Type 052D accelerated out of USS Rafael Peralta's approach path. That moment is not in the footage. It is in the SLQ-32 track record, time-stamped and logged, alongside 47 minutes of Type 346A, emission data, and a 27-page report that is currently being read by analysts in Norfolk, Pearl Harbor, and Tokyo. The UAV that documented the encounter from medium altitude lands at a coastal facility that the SLQ-32's bearing measurement located in the Fuzhou-direction. The footage it captured is good. The Type 052D is prominent in the frame. The American destroyer is visible in the background. The photograph that the operation was designed to produce has been produced. It will be used. It will circulate in the international media cycle and will be cited in discussions of Chinese naval assertiveness in the Taiwan Strait, and will eventually appear in academic papers on plan rights protection doctrine. It will not be accompanied in any of those contexts by the 27th page appendix on Type 052D configuration variances or by the paragraph on the UAV data link bearing that will eventually contribute to an update on plan rights protection operation command and control architecture. On the bridge of USS Rafael Peralta, the officer of the deck is logging the transit complete. The navigator marks the position. The tactical action officer is completing his watch log. The commanding officer is in his sea cabin, which is 37 steps from the bridge, reviewing the situation report before he signs it. The report is accurate. The transit was completed. The collection was significant. The coffee this morning was from a fresh pot and remained warm throughout the intercept, which is the kind of outcome that does not appear in official documents but represents, from a professional standpoint, a well-run morning. The petty officer who ran the camera on the weather deck is downloading the photographs to the ship's intelligence systems. There are 340 of them. They are clear and well-framed. The Type 052D's external configuration is documented from 6 different angles across 47 minutes of escort. The 7 observable departures from published specification are each captured in multiple frames. The analysis will take longer than the transit took. The results will be specific and will matter to the people who track these things, which is to say they will matter to the people whose job it is to know what the planned surface fleet is actually equipped with, as opposed to what Beijing says it is equipped with. The gap between those two pictures is itself an intelligence product. Today's photographs add to it. The Type 052D is on her return leg to Zhoushan. The crew has completed the mission as briefed. The documentation is done. The footage is transmitted. The commanding officer is writing his after-action report, which will describe the encounter as a successful rights protection operation in which a U.S. Navy vessel was monitored and accompanied through the strait and subsequently departed Chinese claimed waters. This is accurate. It does not describe the maneuver at 7:34. It does not describe the 27-page report. It describes a ship doing its assigned task with professionalism and returning to port. All of that is also accurate. Both ships completed their missions. One of them will have a more productive document to show for it than the other, and that document is not the one with the good photographs. The Taiwan Strait is 110 miles wide at its narrowest navigable point. USS Rafael Peralta will be back next month. The SLQ-32 will be running. The camera tripod will be on the weather deck. The coffee will be from a fresh pot. The Type 046A, or whatever follows it, will be in the threat library before the transit begins. The 40-second mode cycle with its 2-second air surveillance gap is already in the operational planning database. It will be there next time, and the time after that. Bye for now.